is the true version of the video that I'm going to be doing today. We are going to be doing the races of Etterwill. You might notice that I've already started. That's because we had some technical difficulties early on that resulted in some issues that I didn't want to upload for a number of reasons, mainly being there was a green flashing that was going on that I didn't want to put people who were photosensitive or had issues with flashing on YouTube, but I still wanted to go through it. So we're going to go through the Etterwill lore again, just so that people have a jumping off point. First, this is the continent of Etterwill. This whole continent I drew by myself. I need to make this an actual map so that it can be put on the front face of my art fight, because this is going to be for art fight being a make your own character thing. These are the race's locations, general locations, major cities and locations for each of the 6 races. Those were the initial sketches of some of the gods. Some of them now have better sketches and representations. Some of the number of the gods where they showed up initially in the order. And their general symbology. Starting with the Tree of Life. Then came Oma, God of Wonder. Then came Tayasa, Goddess of Creativity, Goddess of Wonder. Sirandri, Goddess of Water. Tinatin, God of Animals. Mappin, God of Travelers. Nimat, Goddess of Mysteries. Death. That also has a new name for the people. For those of you who are interested in that sort of thing, but we'll get there when we get through the Varden, which are the people of Nemaya. Not Nemaya, but they are the people of Oma. They live up in the mountains near to where the Tree of Life landed, and they are they're my fun. I initially had this thought for them, which was Yetis. I wanted to do fun antlers. And so they sort of became this weird hybrid creature, which, honestly, considering half of the races of Etterwill seem to have this predilection towards pseudo-animalistic features. And you'll see that as we get into other races. This is just, I think, going to be headshots today. As I work on this for an art fight, make your character or an OC in the style of my world. These technically have no true distinction between masculine and feminine, other than that the females don't shed their antlers. Males tend to in the wild. Males with antlers in our world tend to shed the antlers because they're a display of dominance and, but that follows logic. Same here. all of their particular race has the fluffy manes. Some people have the fangs going downward instead. Some people don't have the fangs at all. They like to decorate their antlers with strings and beads. And I love them. They're cute. So, we're going to hop over into, well, I guess into the second people that we got. I'll need to, for the not so animalistic people, of which we have 2 races, at least, that aren't so animalistic. 2 races. We'll be moving on to the race that I've worked the most on, just in understanding of them. And this would be the race of Jahara. Jahara, if you've noticed, sounds an awful lot like the character that I have talked about in previous videos, including the art fight episode. The last art fight episode. This is the race that got involved in a civil war, not a civil war, involved in a war with another country and got nearly wiped out for their troubles. They are my special beans, because in the world building I am Tyasa. That particular goddess is me. I am that particular goddess. Jahara is a race of magical craftspeople. They lived in a jungle, and they all are pretty special to me. I'm not really sure what more to say on them other than they got ritualistic tattoos and hairstyles. Sahi, who is the prince of this particular country, has 3 very big braids that are just part of what he wears. That's ritualistic hairstyle. They have very, very fluffy hair. The Jaharans do. Partially because I like that, partially because I feel like they deserve it. Yep. I kind of like that, so I'm just going to leave it. But these are also the people who have ritualistic tattooing practices. Most of this involves accomplishments or trades that they plan on doing. Like I feel like this one attempted to be a forge person. but didn't really work out for them. So they didn't fill this in with black. But they have enough training in the forge that they have the outline of it. She has enough. Jahara has the same basic sexual dimorphism as humans here in our world do. But they're a lot more equal. They're also of a darker skin tone. That'll just show off a little bit. Cause I don't do no racisms. Nope. The next group would be Wendenvine, who technically fall like half in this particular animalistic group and half not in that particular animalistic group. This is Sirandri's people. Sirandri is Mr. Fairy Knight. That's always how it's been. And they have the elfin ears, so I get to leave these. They are a race of seafaring folk, basically, who have run the rivers since before time immemorial. They, or rather those of a highly magical nature, can have striping along their body, visible striping, and wings. Those are the people who have the very big wings. I believe these ones are musical mages, but I'm not entirely certain because I forgot to hash that out. They tend to have bigger eyes than most of the other races, and an affinity, like I said, for water above all the other elements because they're technically Sirandri's kids. You can basically find crossbreeds of just about any of these groups, any of these races, because none of them are truly as separate as people might think. Because in this place, well, because one, I say so, and I'm creator of this universe, and two, because it's more fun to think about all the different ways that you can combine these fun races together to do all sorts of interesting things. Like, this particular individual is very magically enhanced. You can tell because they've got wings and stripes. Let's see. I'll just go with that sort of vibe. And they got that sort of piratey roguish look to them. Yes, you never want to meet one of these guys as a pirate. That would be bad for your health and well-being. So, for the other humanoid race. I say humanoid because they have the most in common with, like, people of the here and the now in our world. These are the Vangaran, the Vangarian people. They are the people that Jahara went to war with, that ended up with Jahara, and the Jaharans scattered to the four winds. You may notice that I am giving this person some very dramatic makeup. That's because Vangaran is a tribal culture, and how to tell people apart are the specific facial painting structures that each culture, each group has their own. Each roaming tribe, they eventually get united under one person. That's why they went to war with Jahara. They also had a thing about predators versus prey in the not so good way. But their vibes are very dangerous, or they were. They don't really have a whole lot of, like, differences from people that you'd expect at first glance, except for the fact that they can and will channel their natural born right as a species, which is they, when they're born, inherit traits and basically instincts from specific animals. That's their birth animal. That's their, like, natural counterpart. They are that animal but given human shape, is what their belief system basically says on the subject. So, right here, I'm gonna, like, fan this out some more. I think this particular friend here is gonna have because I gotta show this sort of off somehow. Uh, I'll just go with some variety of cat-like creature. I'll show off the fact that they do have, so like she'd be able to channel this particular cat-like energy to maybe run faster, maybe be better at fighting, etc. That's not it. This is it. In the case of Vengran, down here with the tail that you're seeing on screen now, this sort of silhouette, their hair goes all the way down their spine, and their tail right there is actually a tail that they have control over. So I say humanoid, but they're not super humanoid. They're still kind of beast-like, is the thing. Alright, I can't really do a good introduction to the Devori without specifically stating that the Devori are the children of Mappin. So by being the children of Mappin, they are very, very animalistic, but in that way that's like Kenomimi. We'll do maybe a dog boy, something like that. These ones are not going to be like hard to tell apart from people. They have a sister race in the Nemayans, because quite literally that is Mappin's sister. They come with their own set of challenges when you're designing them. Mostly stuff like the ears make it difficult to design hair without it looking a little bit odd. To somebody who's like naturally more used to drawing human facial features. They also tend towards hybridism. So, like, you'll see that this guy's a dog boy. He's got the doggish ears, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and, like, give him giraffe spots as well. Because that's not unheard of. The Devori also, interestingly enough, have a certain like birth pattern that appears in and on and around their fur. Like, I'm going to go ahead and say this Mr. Man right here is a winter. He's got snowflakes and speckles. That means he was born in winter. It's a winter boy. The children of Mappin are more attuned to channeling magic through their bodies than anything else. Now, oops. Think I did it bad. But that's okay, I can fix it. Yep, I made a mistake and I got rid of my initial drawing, which isn't what I wanted to do. But it's what happened, so cool. So that's the Devori. Got it. Now we're on to Nemaya. Nemaya is completely different from literally everybody else. As they are my lizard people, basically. They don't really have defined gender like characteristics. It's mostly about what you've displayed to the public, usually through clothing. They come in a wide variety of colors. They can be venomous or not, as the case may be. I'm honestly super glad that I went and did them anyway, even though I'm usually not a big fan of like trying to make humanoid lizards. I don't think people really do it all that well. So this is my take on them, I suppose, would be a good way of putting it. They don't normally have eyebrows per se, but they do have brow ridges, which can have anything on them that a lizard might have, including little pokey horns. And they do not have hair. They just don't. You're never going to get that here. And I'm just drawing directly on this one. This is fine. But anything that a lizard can have, they can also have. So, like, some lizards have nice big crests. You can easily have that be the case here as well. And if you want to add more to it, you can do frills. Basically, go ham with your designs if you are going to design an Nemayan, because they're very fun thought patterns wise. because it's just, what do you want to add to your lizard person? You can have anything basically anywhere, their gender roles or whatever. They get all of it. They get all of everything. They get patterns at the wazoo. You want it to be striped? They can be striped. You want them to be... I did forget one more thing. One of their racial features, which is, fairly self-explanatory. Their eyes are one solid color, usually. Fun lizard people. God of mysteries. Goddess of mysteries. And on top of that, they get to wear all the fun Arabian desert clothes because they live in the one place in the world that amuses me like no other place. My Ghost Flame Desert, where if you light a fire in the desert, you can summon ghosts. The last, and not the least, because these guys took me so long to get this right for them. Also, before I finish on Nemaya, they get claws on their hands. That's just natural. But if you want to design a naga, you can design a naga. Because that's a lizard person. That's a snake person that falls into Nemaya. You want to give them lizard frills and have them be a naga? Knock yourself out, man. Just go ahead. Hit that. I believe in you. Go insane. These last people are the Ethmari. Recently named, but they've always been around in my head. These are the people who follow death, basically. Often known as the wish dealers. Yes, exactly, Coop. These people are a fairly unique and not very plentiful race. They are my weirdest thought patterns that I've come up with, and are almost entirely defined by the moon. Now, their horns don't have to be symmetrical. They usually are, but they don't have to be. And what I mean by defined by the moon is very simple. I mean that quite literally. The coloration and patterns that they get, and whether or not they have two sets of horns, among other things, is defined by the phase of the moon. In this case, I'm going to go and show off, I suppose, what I guess I'm going to call the lunar eclipse colorant. This is basically dark blackish red. And this goes basically everywhere. On the horns and on the ears. And there is more. Because I need to explain that. These areas can't be cut by any mineral or material or person. They can't even be broken. by things on the planet, basically. Meteorites might factor into it, but as of right now, these parts are invincible. They can't get hit on those parts and take damage. But the places where the skin tone is, so like here, can. These parts can't be tattooed, they can't be touched, but they'll always have more than one spot. And it's always revealing a vital area. The best character example that I have for this particular thing in here right now, which isn't a lot, I need to pull in another character. It would be this guy right here. He's a wish dealer. And if I turn off the layer that shows his clothes, you can see that he's got black areas all along his skin. Now, those black areas can't be like hurt. You know that. But like hearts are at right here ish. Doesn't seem to have anything on the side, so you could go in that way. Going right through there, you get him good. He's a special case, however, because he himself was born during an eclipse, which is why he's got the stripes. Specifically, a solar eclipse, like what's coming up in April of this year for Texas. I'm looking forward to seeing that because I'm in the path of that particular one. Which gives him a little bit more oomph in his abilities, but it also makes him more vulnerable. Basically, even though he's a hip hop dancer, he's got the power of mages on his side. For ones like the half moon, you'll see one half being whiter colored, like one half of these horns being whiter colored, and the person's skin having vitiligo more often than not. Not perfectly mirrored, but sometimes. This is a blood moon or a red moon, also known as a lunar eclipse. They get red, and they get a slightly more a mysterious vibe. They can either have white irises or black irises. I don't really care. One of my other characters that's on Art Fight, her name is Blitzy. Her full name is Blitzkrieg. And that's the other thing you need to know. When naming your wish dealer, you have to name them something weird and also possibly awful. Another one of my wish dealer children, Blitzy's partner, his name is Toil. That's his actual name. Why did I make it so that this is the way it works? I don't know. But it is, and now everybody has to deal with it. Anyway, back to this particular stuff. They always, wish dealers, will always have white or very, very light colored hair. Richter, who you saw, dyed his hair red because he wanted red hair. These guys, my wish dealers, are the most likely to use hair dye out of all of my races. And the people who are most likely to sell it are the people on boats, which is... I didn't say their name. They're Wendenvine. They're Wendenvinians. So they're almost always going to have white or light hair. Like I said, you can do either light or black sclera. I don't really care either way for your character. If you want to have one of each, however, you have to have somebody who's half and half. New Moon is all dark. And Full Moon is all light. If you were born on a blue moon, or the second full moon in a month, you can have multiple horns and multiple tails, but they'll also always have blue eyes. Outside of that, any of the eye colors will work for any of these particular beings. Let's see. That's right. I did forget. There's one last thing to know about wish dealers, and that is that they have a tail. They're born with this tail. This tail is a part of them. And it's always two-pronged. Except for blue moon people. Blue moon peoples are the only ones that can double up on both horns and tail features. So they'll always have like this forked tail. They also got clawed feet, but... And this tail shape can be done in any number of ways. You could literally just do it like that and have it be really close to the back end, to their bootay. Or you can have that same shape be at the very end of a very long one. Or you can try your best to like give yourself a very long fork. But there is a cutoff to when the forks happen, and that'll be explained when I do a separate like video for each of the races, as well as what new moon, full moon, blue moon, and other such phenomena look like. I'm pretty sure that's it for the races. So now I believe I will open it up to questions. If you have any questions about the character races so far, please. Now's the time to ask a little bit. Because now I've gone over it, so you're qualified to ask questions about races that you're interested in. I'm also going to just straight up clarify that there will be like a skin tone chart when I do these and upload them. There are 6 races, which does make things a little bit difficult for me, except for the fact that if I'm being honest, which I will try to always be, the Devori, the Varden, the the Devori, the Varden, and technically speaking, the Nemayans are all sibling races. They're close enough that I feel like I could get away with explaining them together for the most part. Some of these races have unique connections to each other, like the fact that Jahara and Wendenvine were once at war to the point where Jahara nearly got wiped out, and that Wendenvine is a close ally and always has been a close ally of Nemaya. Another fun thing to note is that people are definitely afraid of the wish dealers, even though wish dealers and their contract magic are only and have only ever been out there to help people. We will be going over like any sort of and stuff in a different video, and I will be finalizing all of these things for use in Art Fight. I even have two different ones. See how I got like a dude one and a girl one for both of these. That's what I like about my particular group of individuals. It makes it that much more fun to just go over stuff. So if there are no questions, then I'm going to go ahead and start inking this particular group of fancy arts. Starting once again with the Varde. And I want to make sure that everybody knows they're the fluffiest basically druids around. They tend to have big cat energy, big cat megafauna energy for their particular racial features. Which is important. The fact that I'm pretty sure, double checking my notes, they're the tallest race These guys are the tallest out of all of the races on Etterwill. And that's part of the reason is definitely because of their animalistic natures and the fact that they are great big fluffy beasts, basically. I believe I was also told that they were a matriarchal society, so they tend to do their mothers first and foremost. And I believe I was told that by Eclectic, my mom, who is Oma in my thought processes here. So, this race is the race that theoretically her god in this world that I made up is in charge of. Which, you know, in itself is a cool thing. These are more based off of interpretations of my family members as well, not actual, like, under their control energy. Yeah. So this is what the Varden tend to look like. That'll be for a color thing. Big bear-like cryptid energies. What I was thinking when I made them initially, which I think I got into a little bit, was the Yetis and other folklore of great big beastie monsters protecting the places that they lived. And I love that. I love that for the big old beefy monsters. So like it's important to me that they come across as both big beefy monsters and also not as bad, not enemies, but not somebody you really want to mess with either. Each of them I wanted to have sort of a fun, different, like, thought process put into it. Nemaya, initially, when I was doing the initial pass for Nemaya, they weren't lizard people. Their god was a lizard person. But they weren't. And they were me taking my like of the art styles of glass blowers because they live in glass cities and they make glass bells because that's the only way to get rid of ghosts. And you don't want ghosts funking up your oases. This is the reason that they have such a good relationship with Sirandri and why she's the second shipped deity of Nemaya is because of the oases. What else? Ah, yes. I don't really got a clue what I'm gonna say. Not really sure what I was gonna say again. Lost my train of thought. Turn off the drawing assist. Just so that I have this as an example, because then I can use others as a different example instead of if I just do this real quick, then I can not only sort of explain like the fact that the wish dealers tend to be paler. They don't have to be pale. They tend towards pale stuff because they themselves are usually manifestations of nighttime. Have to be like that. Then I can actually just sort of like group all of those together and delete that layer. Yes. Very pleased with that actually. And then we'll do a Devori. Okay, here we go. The Devori are the animal children of Mappin. Their creatory myths tend towards usually silly little stories of Mappin himself going on adventures. The people try their best to give more fun stories, but they're also my feudal medieval Europe region of my map. That's just sort of their vibe. Because I wanted to touch on what was it? I wanted to touch on an interesting thought that I had, which was they're trying to get themselves as close as they possibly can to the weird mythical beasts of old, so like the heraldic beasts and all of that, by attempting to pick best partners, usually in arranged marriages, for their kids to give them unique appearances and get them closer to weird creatures previously mentioned, like myths. Because that's what Mappin is. Mappin is, for all intents and purposes, a Kieran, because that's sort of what I designed him based off of. So he's got horse and dragon and like unicorn vibes, while also having tiger stripes and a long tail and trailing lightning wherever he goes. That's not because he's got any power over lightning. It's just because he goes so fast. He creates little like spark wherever he goes. So, yeah, looks good. So we'll move on to the next one. We'll move back on to Wendenvine. A very fun group of layers here for me. Uh, I specifically enjoy this particular group because, like the Ethmari, or the wish dealers, they've been difficult, not necessarily for me, but for my sister, who hadn't really had any sort of like initial plans for them, other than she wanted them to be Fae. If you could not tell by the fact that I call her Fairy Knight because that's her username, she likes the Fae and not just like the sanitized versions of them, but like when they were ooky spooky, big ol' scary monsters. She also likes chivalry and knights, so her favorite author being, for at one point being, because I think it's Drew Hayes again now, but I don't want to put words in her mouth. So she likes Tamora Pierce. If you have never read Tamora Pierce's like Lady Knight stuff, I suggest that you do. It's pretty good. Then of course we get to do the hair. fun coming back into this particular world that I've designed just to explain stuff, because I am a firm believer in share everything, even the stuff you're not necessarily sure of. That way, the people who like it can find it. Or rather, I'm getting to be that way specifically, like now. It used to be that I was more scared of sharing things. I'm not as scared of sharing things anymore. And there we go. Beautiful set of wings. But I want you to know those are wings with air quotes on them, because Fairy has told me specifically that they aren't necessarily wings so much as they are fins, which should tell you something, at least a little bit, about the thought process. Now, what else can I do? We're on to Nemaya lives in the Ghost Flame Desert. Nemaya, which is like literally, it's my favorite environment that I've come up with. It's weird in its magical nature, and it's completely out there as far as I'm concerned. I haven't seen anything quite like it anywhere else. There's places that it definitely could be like inspired from, but like, I meant the sand thing literally. The Ghost Flame Desert, if you take the sand, you can light it on fire. It's flammable in its own respect. And it will make ghosts appear. Usually people highly connected with you, and or very, very mad at you for whatever reason. They are quite possibly my favorite. Like, they live in my favorite area. That is a guarantee on my part. I love the Ghost Flame Desert. It has such fun storytelling ability, because like, that's where the dead live, man. Could it be considered heck? Yeah, it could, but is it? No. Really isn't. People still live there. Van Guren's also fun. Just generally, because, like, These are people who are not werewolves, but they're also basically werewolves. You could call them were-animals. But they're also not were-animals. They're also like super makeuped. I feel like goth isn't a thing with them, but at the same time, they're very goth. I forgot to mention that Van Gran's hairy. But that's just, I think, a thing with them. I can't decide either if I want to give them pointed ears or not. So it may just be an up to the creator type of thing. Where it's based off of what you feel and what their animal is. Because that is an important thing and that needs to be said. Let's see. Now we gotta make sure that the face paint gets on. We're gonna make sure we do that by taking this, selecting the face, making sure you get in those corners, coming over here, taking my red, taking a fun, like, yeah, that literally, this, I like that actually better, so we're gonna go with that instead. You could literally just do whatever you want for fun. It doesn't really matter. And then the last one is Jahara. And my Jahara is, like I said, it's very near and dear to my heart. So we'll be doing our best to explain. You can see a Jaharan tattoo here on her face. This is a birthplace tattoo. It's too thick. They're important in Jaharan culture because they let you know where somebody was born, basically. I have actually designed all locations for Jahara birthplace tattoos. This one right here is for Van Gran. I have one for the Varden, and for Wendenvine, and for Mari. I worked hard to design each of them, and I'm working on other types of tattoos for Jahara now. Because there are so many, like, just general differences that can be had specifically between ancient and modern tattooing, among other things. And then there are cultures where I definitely should look into them a little bit more, like the Maori, who have a similar style of, like, merit-based tattooing. You might notice that I'm changing up the hair a little bit. That's because I didn't like how it looked from a distance. And I wanted to, like, give my thoughts a little bit more time to percolate. Because the first hairstyle pass didn't really work for me. The second one I'm liking a lot better. Probably because of the more, like, weird tribalist aspects. There will be a discussion when I get into each of them, for at least the ones that I have control over, because I don't control all of these different races fully. Some of them are more based off of, like, the ideas that my family has, because they've been a part of this project since it began. Right here, this needs to be rounded out a little bit. But basically, more like that is what I was going for. This design makes me happy. Stuff like this. So, like, I'll let you know that Jahara likes their metallic jewelry. This particular character, they tend towards silver and gold jewelry. And they They've practiced it for a while. This art. Darker natural skin tone. Like so. And tend to have dark hair as well. Jaharans make magic through what they make. So they're weaving their gifts that they give to other cultures. That's what makes them them. But because this is a fantasy world, they also tend to have eye colors that are weird. Typical Jaharan. Right, I did forget one thing. Yep, I like those. Those are probably going to be family markings. Being married, how many kids you have, probably rest up by your collarbone or by your heart. They only tend to have one tattoo on their face, and that's their birthplace tattoo. Goodness. I don't think I need the sketch layers anymore, and I think I'm just going to make an example of different like people, different locations, and different what have yous. Yep, that's bad. Where's the leak? Probably right there. Yep. And I do this to show, mostly to show you guys that these are what the races look like. These are what the races behave like. This is how they live. I personally think this sketchy overlay of whatever kind of animal this is suits this. I like the big red splotch of face paint. I'm just sort of going in and adding colors now. So, like, here's Jahara. This is what they tend to look like. With their big fluffy hair and their gold jewelry and what have you. This right here is Vangaran. More muted, more wild, more natural looking colors. Except for the face paint. And then their overlay of a spirit is still sketchy, and I would recommend keeping it sketchy for people who want to make a Vangarian OC. They hard to make, but they can be like important to maintain their stuff correctly. We got lizard folk I'm going to have fun coloring them because I don't have to do a whole lot. Changed up some stuff with that. Basically, I have decided that yep, neon green. Why? Because I say so. Because that makes me happy as a person. Am I using actual lizards for references? No. Could I have? Yes. Now let's go over to this area and we'll get a nice. Nah, not bright enough. Brighter. Basically, I'm over here making an eye bleed dinosaur. Yes. Yes, like that. Very fun party lizard right here. Not at all subtle. Time to be neon bright. Wenden Vine ended up looking very nice. Wenden Vine are my classic seafaring pirate fairies, basically. If you don't think that's classic, I don't know what to tell you, because that's classic. Keeping it to the skin tone, but giving it a little bit of a mystical vibe by just straight up grabbing a similar color to Atlantis, but this is just natural striping. And then we go over here, and we'll just like try and find another nice gold color. Because they're pirate fairies. What do you want from them? My sister, fairy, loves a good redhead. So we're just going to go ahead and make this one a nice redhead. Redheaded pirate lady. Or man. All of these are kind of gender neutrally at the moment for me. And we'll take a very, very yep, I'm enjoying that. And we'll leave the wings transparent, like clear completely at the moment. Because I don't want to go through that. So. I already did the Athmari, which is this nice looking lady right here. So we'll do this one. So that we can do it nicely. And just like I was saying with the stuff here, very fun to do this. It's very neat. Just like this. Very much dark green eyes. And then we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna grab a nice brownish color, I think. I'm gonna see. Basically, you can just take some nice neutral browns and then overlay it. I was thinking that maybe I wanted the antlers to be a different color, but I like the way they look like here, so I'm just gonna leave that. Which just leaves this little devotional Devori man here. Devori always have odd